Hi everybody, it's Joe Cioffi here. I hope you're hearing me okay. So if somebody could just give me an acknowledgement that my audio is working fine, that would be really great. And I do see Hosea is up. Hi back to you. And I am going to live stream here, and I'm setting it up a little bit differently. Just haven't been able to figure out yet how to get my face on the screen, but we're working on that. Good, the audio's fine. So you know what, let's get right to it and go through what's happening tonight. First off, we have Jose, which is a hurricane, and it was upgraded to a hurricane just a little while ago on the 5 o'clock advisory. And I'm going to bring up the satellite view of Jose on the tight shot here. And you can see, there's banding going on. The hurricane has what looks like a concentrated core that's developing. And okay, a little loud. How's that? Is that better? I hope it is. Good. Audio okay. Okay, so you can see there's banding and there's just a well-defined core now. Remember, this was a Category 4, almost Category 5 hurricane with 150-mile-an-hour winds a week ago. So it's only half that. And I want to emphasize that part here, that with respect to whatever's going to wind up happening up the eastern seaboard early next week, this is not as if we're staring a major hurricane in the face, and I don't think that this is going to strengthen too much. It may wind up getting to Category 2 status, but I don't think it's going to get much beyond it. So let's hope that that's the case, but I feel pretty confident in that. Conditions are conducive for strengthening from here up until it gets to about 35 degrees north. We don't see any evidence of any kind of shearing going on, so this may wind up getting a little bit stronger. Now I'll take another view, and we will look at it from the standpoint of the enhanced view, and we'll bring that up. The higher and colder cloud tops are in, it doesn't, hold on, I just want to get this little guy out of the way. The higher and colder cloud tops, so you can see where the reds flare up here. We probably had a burst of intensification. Usually what happens is these things kind of come and go as they're in their development setup. So the fact that you see the reds there, which are the really high cold cloud tops, disappear, doesn't necessarily mean that weakening is occurring. It just could be that whatever strengthening phase it went through is now done, and then it will just wait to see it fire up again. But you can see how the yellows kind of curl back westward. So it's trying to show some convection wrapping around on the west side. It's a fairly well-defined system here. I've seen better, and I've also seen far worse. So from the standpoint of structure, so we're looking like this could wind up strengthening a bit more in the next 24 to 36 hours. Let me just say a quick hello to everybody, to Steve Schnurman, Mirtha Gunter is here, Dan Iameti. Thank you. I'm just trying something different here from as far as broadcasting goes. Steve says he's going on Long Island Wednesday. Spaghetti model showing considerably east of central Long Island. Do you agree? We're going to show you the spaghetti models in a little bit, and I will certainly tackle that and what it means, because there are a few other things that are going on that we're going to have to pay attention to. So let's look now in perspective to the entire eastern part of the United States, so you can at least get an idea of how this all appears with relative to the east coast of the United States. And you can bring it up right there, and you can see there on the lower right you have Jose. You've got the remnants of Irma in the form of clouds, and what's amazing is there is so little going on with this in terms of the remnants of Irma that it's hard to imagine that this was a Category 5 hurricane, because now all you have are just a couple of handful of pop-up showers, but the remaining trough is still hanging back in this area from West Virginia through western Pennsylvania, upstate New York. So it's that trough is going to have a little, it's going to have some impact here with regards to Jose's track. And you can also see the clouds that are running from the northeast Gulf of Mexico up the east coast and off the New England coast. That's sort of an old little dead frontal zone that's out there. So we're going to look at that as possibly the alleyway at which Jose tracks. Out, by the way, to the northwest, they're getting snows in parts of Idaho and into western Wyoming and into northwestern Montana, as a very deep trough forms out in the western part of the United States. So you have a tale of two seasons here, as autumn is coming in a big hurry in the west right now, and it's having an impact on what exactly Jose is going to do in the longer term. We're going to look at the Hurricane Center's forecast map, which really has not changed very much from earlier today. You can see that the track is just about the same, kind of snaking it up northward, sometimes a little bit to the east and sometimes a little bit to the west, and then it kind of goes out to 40 and 70. One of the things that's going to happen here as the system moves northward is that, especially once it gets north of 35, it's probably going to get rather large in terms of geography. It's going to begin to take the shape of a wintertime cyclone. And what that will mean is that the wind field will probably expand, as will the rain area expand. So rather than be in a situation where you have to be basically inside 150 miles of the center, we may wind up getting some weather from this up to several hundred miles away to the west and to the north. So we're going to have to just watch and see how that happens when we get there. But it is going to take more of an extratropical nature when we move this up to the north, as we get into the early part of next week. Along about starting probably Monday night and into Tuesday. I just want to address here. The Maestro Way wants to, would I consider being a guest on your YouTube channel? Absolutely. Just shoot me a message and we'll take it from there. I got plenty of time to during the weekend. We'll figure something out. Okay, you were asking about the spaghetti models before, and the spaghetti plots, which are the hurricane track models, and there's a lot of them. Sometimes I wish there were fewer, because I think it only adds to the confusion sometimes. But you can see they're all, there is a range. The western, it looks like more of them are kind of on the western side of this envelope than the east, and you have one that does this crazy loop, which was indicated by the European model, and today's European was beyond bizarre, by the way, so I'll show that to you in a bit. But if it does start to acquire extratropical or post-tropical characteristics, or the characteristics of a winter-type cyclone, you can get a track like this and still wind up with rain and wind over coastal southern and southeastern New England, Long Island, maybe back to about New York City, and coastal New Jersey would be the western extent of it. So if you're just inland of those areas, you're not going to see very much out of this if it takes this track. And by the way, I still think that there's a lot of uncertainty regarding the forecast going forward. There's still just way too much going on. So we are going to look together, because I actually haven't seen it yet, so we can both, we'll be able to see it at the same time. So I'm going to bring up tropical tidbits and leave these maps to the side so you can watch the hurricane spin away there. And let me, now we'll start interacting with the map, and I will change the region. So we'll go to the eastern region. You saw that snow that's up in parts of Montana, and we'll start to move this along. And James CIP, hello back from Amityville. Good to see you here. Okay, so we'll start to move this map, and we'll see what the new GFS does with this. And you can see it moves northwestward. By tomorrow afternoon, it's already moving north, and it kind of, from here, will move a little bit to the east and a little bit to the west on its track northward. And we are now at Monday morning. And here is Monday evening, 8 p.m. Monday evening, 2 a.m. Tuesday morning. And now notice, this is at 8 a.m. Tuesday morning, the GFS. And this is part of that expansion I'm talking about. You're going to see the rain area expand to on the western side in particular, and the wind bands will expand. Now, the lowering of the pressure that the GFS, is it the 12Z? I'm sorry. You know what? Leave the 12Z up there. So let's look at the 12Z. Thanks for pointing that out. I didn't realize it. Okay, so here's the 12Z track. So now you'll have a comparison. So it takes it very close to Nantucket and Cape Cod and moves it out. But you saw how it brought the rain to about New York City and into southern New England and even the Hudson Valley, and it would bring some rain to parts of western New Jersey if this is correct. Thank you, Thomas. I really appreciate it. I'm not always on top of these things, but I try to be, but sometimes they fall through the cracks. Okay, so here's the 18Z. So let's see what adventure the 18Z has, if it's further west or further east. Let's take a look. Okay, so we are at now at Sunday morning on the new GFS. Let's go back one run. So it looks like it's a little bit south and west of the old GFS. And that's one of the things the European did today, was that it was, for a while, it was south and west of the old run. Okay, the Nova Scotia question. All right, we're going to address that too. I don't want to leave anybody out. I'm sorry. Sometimes I got the chat actually scrolling to the side, so I'm trying to do this where I can see you guys what you're saying at the same time. So let's follow the GFS along, and here we are at Monday evening, 8 p.m., 2 a.m. Tuesday, 8 a.m. Tuesday. I have the 18Z, so we are getting wind and rain here over New Jersey into the coast, and look at that. It jumps it more northward, brings it very close to eastern Long Island again on this run. So, we're getting these back and forth nip and tuck tracks from run to run, and some runs are going a little west and some are going a little east. So this one apparently has gone back the other way. If this happens, this is going to certainly bring tropical storm conditions to coastal New Jersey and Long Island, and there are going to be tidal issues with this, obviously, with the new moon. Now let's look what happens at Nova Scotia, and be advised, if this is going to start to look like more of a winter type cyclone, you're going to start to see precipitation develop, far north and east and northward of where the center is. Because again, this almost looks like, at this point, it almost looks like a winter type storm, and the new GFS takes it into the Gulf of Maine and to Nova Scotia itself. So whoever it was that was asking about it, I think they're going to put the rain. They may put the rain back in based on this run. And this is as far out as we have at the moment. So let me just back this up. We'll put the wind field. I'm going to get a little tighter. We'll put the wind field here up here, and we'll put the 10-meter wind so we can get an idea of what the GFS is doing with respect to wind conditions here. And the red area is greater than 40 knots. So certainly gales along the New Jersey coast and over Long Island, and of course the core of the strongest wind stays just offshore. But there'll be some pretty good gusts with this if that's the case. And then on up off the New England coast, and you can see the winds kind of relax a little bit, but there's still every bit of gale force as they approach Halifax and beyond and move away to the east. Now, I'm kind of hoping that this is the track in one sense, not so much if it comes to the coast, but as long as it moves out and keeps on going, I'm not an unhappy camper. But I want to show you the European today because, I put up a post on my website, and I called it because of what the European did today, I called it the European apparently is the new Canadian, because it just really did, it just was squirrely in a lot of ways. And let me show you why. So I'm going to have to put up that map so that with the pressure anomaly, there's the GFS. So let's review on the 18Z again, showing that track being a little further west, and it doesn't really turn it to the northeast until the very last minute when it reaches Block Island, or actually maybe east of Long Island, Nantucket, and then right over Cape Cod before it goes out to the northeast. And there you have Nova Scotia, so I can make my Canadian viewers here happy. So let's go and show you what the European did, because it really was mind-boggling when I took a look at it. It was just bizarre. First off, The European is much further south and west of the GFS run, and that is a definite, and it's slower. So here we are at Tuesday morning, and here's Tuesday afternoon. I'm sorry, Wednesday morning. Now watch what happens after this, okay? It goes out to the east, then to the southeast, then to the south, and look what's south of there in the southeast Bahamas is a new hurricane. This is the system that is right now not the tropical depression that's still southwest of the Cabo Verde Islands. This is a new system, the tropical wave that's ahead of it, that all the models are very aggressively developing that into a tropical storm or hurricane early next week. And that's going to have to be watched closely, because I think that's going to move through the Leeward Islands and the Lesser Antilles and before it winds up going up into the Bahamas. But look at that. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And it's moving, Jose is moving southeast and southward, and then it turns westward as the other system starts to move northwestward, and then it pulls Jose back up over Boston, while the hurricane to the south is moving north-northeast up the coast. And by the way, at this point, we're at Monday the 25th. I mean, it's really just strange. I don't, it's such a bizarre setup that it's almost difficult to even take it seriously. And the reason why it's like this is because, we're in this kind of upper air no man's land here. It's not like we have a deep trough to our west, all right? A deep trough to our west makes the forecast fairly simple, in that the trough is going to pick it up and it's going to move along with the flow. Okay, but we have a ridge here in the eastern part of the United States, and we have the remnants of a trough that represents Irma that is extremely weak. So the steering currents are just almost non-existent, at least at the 18,000 foot level. And you do have a little bit of troughing here that Jose responds to, but you don't have any real strong push in one direction. And the ridge in the east continues to build. In fact, the upper high, the Europeans back to this idea of this upper high trying to build into the east, and Jose responding to that by moving southeastward. And you can see it here. This is high pressure. This is a high. The wind is blowing clockwise, so we have aloft northeast winds from Boston to the Carolinas. Then they kind of snake back and then continue with northerly winds into the western Gulf of Mexico, and then they turn southerly when you get back to from the Mississippi River westward, because we've got a deep trough out in the western part of the United States. And gradually, by the very end of the period, you start to see the westerlies come down out of Canada, but it's at the very, very end. We can show you on the wider view with respect to the upper air. I hope I can. It's not letting me get... Oh, I can get to the North America? Is it going to let me? No, I got to fix the size on this. Otherwise, it's not going to let me click on the North America view. So you know what? I think I can get the U.S. view at least. And let me go back to the beginning on what the upper air is going on. You see what's happening here in the western part of the United States? You get this very, very deep trough. And that's... because of the action that's going on in the west, it's kind of nudging Jose a little bit further to the east. It's fighting. It's got this ridge that wants to kind of make it go, take a more westward track, and then you have this trough in the west that's coming in, and this is producing the cold air and the snow out in the west. So you got a deep trough in the west, big ridge in the east, and a tropical system reacting to that ridge. But from the standpoint of flow, it's kind of in no man's land. So I'm going to, let me move this out, and I just want to show you the other system that is in the tropics that we're watching. So let me just bring that out for you. And you can see it here. This wave, the tropical depression, is in the far right corner, near where the black part that looks like somebody took a bite out of the satellite picture. That's the depression. It's what's ahead of it that is becoming better organized, and it's this that models are aggressively developing into a tropical storm and hurricane when it goes toward the Leeward Islands and up through the Lesser Antilles. And eventually, a lot of the models have this in the southeastern Bahamas next weekend. So that's another system that we're going to have to watch, and that's, I think, going to be may wind up being a serious player in terms of strength down the road. Depending on whether the depression is off southwest of the Cabo Verde Islands gets first, one of those may be Lee and one of those will be Maria. By the way, the one that's further east, there is going to be a bit of a strong upper low that's dropping down into the Atlantic that's going to create some hostile wind conditions for that. So I don't know how much you're going to get out of that particular system in terms of development. But the wave that's ahead of it that's approaching the leewards has to be watched. And if you are in the Leeward Islands, the northern windwards, and the Lesser Antilles, I certainly would keep abreast of forecasts, because I suspect that this time tomorrow we may have either one of those tropical cyclone designations where we're expecting it to imminently become a tropical storm. So I'm just going to scroll through your comments here really fast. The euro is projecting the upper high going to rotate Jose around. It is. It seems to coming back and forth on this with regards to it. Right now, today, it did it in a slightly different way, in a much more broader way. You know, loops at this latitude are very, very unusual. They're not unheard of, but they are unusual. So, you know, I kind of want to be a little suspect. And we're still in this very uncertain phase with the models. I'm still not convinced that it could, you know, we could see shifts either to the east or to the west going forward. I hate to sound non-committal, but because of the deadness of the upper flow, you know, is what weakness we have there, what troughing we have, does it act as a kicker and just kick it out to the east? Or is it so weak that the model responds more to the ridge and takes a track further west? And I really don't think we're going to know that. Maybe tomorrow we'll get a fairly good clue. At least I hope so, because I don't like having these forecast overhangs going on. Yeah, tornado, the track would be Cape Cod, Nantucket, you know, and that's certainly going to be enough to bring wind and rain through much of my particular forecast area. Long Island, New Jersey, Hudson Valley, eastern Pennsylvania, maybe not to eastern Pennsylvania, but lower Hudson Valley, most of, say, eastern New Jersey, New York City, southern half of Connecticut, and Long Island, and, you know, central and eastern Long Island will probably get into some wind. Yeah, no fishing in the Hudson Canyon, Martin M. You're not going. I refuse to allow it. I want my audience safe and sound, okay? Okay, Julianne, great. So I'm sorry, I did address the Nova Scotia issue, and I will definitely address it again. Ben Mack, you know, thanks for putting that up, and I did see that question before. I'm sorry it took so long to address it. I hope tornado. You were a little sick last night, so I hope you're feeling better. Kyle, Lisa, do I think this could trend further west? Yeah, there's certainly time, and we're still going into the 96-hour time to 120-hour time frame. There could be a change in track and in speed of track. And by the way, just to throw this out at you, usually in situations like this, these systems tend to come up a little faster. Okay. And I think if it does do that, it would probably favor a more easterly track if it were to come up faster, because it would not give the ridge enough time to build in. So we're going to be watching to see, you know, if this thing starts to move a bit quicker. Euro is reading Jose circling and pointing to Tropical Storm Lee. Well, or Maria, depending on which one of those two systems gets named first. Let's see. Okay. And will Maryland and Mid-Atlantic region get any impacts from Jose? Seth, I think, you know, maybe if you're standing at Delmarva on the beach, unless the track suddenly shifts northwestward by a significant degree, but you might get a little bit of wind out of it, but it's not going to be anything that would stand out. What could Dakota Kilpack, what kind of effects would... Oh, I'm sorry, let me just get that back there. What kind of effects would the upper air patterns have on Jose's potential extratropical transition? What kind of patterns would expand the wind field out over New Jersey? Well, what happens is there's the upper trough that's in the jet stream, which is, you know, which is outside of the it's not of tropical origin. It basically kind of like exerts its own influence and energy over the system. Systems or tropical systems, once they get north of like 20, really once they get north of 30 north, they really start to assume more tropical non-tropical characteristics. They begin to move faster. The wind fields basically start to spread out. So if that happens, what you'll see is the western edge of the gales will expand westward, maybe right to the coast. The rain might expand further westward, the western edge of it. And by the way, I don't see this being a big rain, problem to the point where it's going to produce anything other than like your standard rain event. If you didn't know it was a tropical system out there, especially if it was, later October, November, you would just think you'd be getting low pressure moving up the coast. I mean, that's kind of how it will behave. If you're on the immediate coast, it might be a bit of a different matter because, you may have gales. But when it starts to interact with the non-tropical characteristics of the jet stream, it can get energized in the way that a non-tropical system gets energized, and you see the pressures fall. But it distinctly changes its characteristics in terms of the wind field and the rain, but particularly the wind field, because instead of having a concentrated area of strong winds near the center, you have a broader area of gales, but much lower in terms of wind speed. Okay, so do I see anything? Ruthless Goat. What is so disturbing is that we already have had devastating storms and we're just at halftime. Yeah, the thing is, Ruthless, that I was having this conversation with someone today regarding this. The lack of severe hurricane activity making landfall over the last 12 years, where we didn't have a single Category 3 or higher storm move in, the longest dry stretch on record, seems to be getting made up very, very quickly at this point with the two of them, with Irma and with Harvey, and there's certainly plenty of time for a third one or even a fourth one to occur. But we're basically spending this hurricane season kind of reverting back to the mean, just making up for the 12 years where we didn't have very much. Zachary Grybos just talked about 96L, which is the wave that's east of the Windward Islands, the satellite loop above there. You can see it. It's the depression. The tropical depression is on the edge of the satellite, where you see the black cutout. It's the wave ahead of it, and certainly it's looking to me like it's getting better organized. You're starting to see that curvature. There seems to be more of a concentration of thunderstorms near what could be a circulation that's developing. Could I please answer Sneaky Assassin's question? He's been asking the same one. Okay, Sneaky Assassin, I'm sorry. I'm trying to find your question. Southwestern Connecticut. You know what? You'll be on the edge of the rain and maybe some wind depending on the track. I don't think it's going to be problematic, and tides in Long Island Sound are probably going to run higher, so we're going to have some coastal flooding. That's where I think this may have the biggest impact depending on track, and we're going to work out that part of the equation when we get into later Sunday and Monday, is that coastal flooding here could be an issue. We have a new moon in the middle of next week. We have the arrival of autumn as well on Thursday. So all of that is going to play for the astronomically high tides, and they're going to be, we could wind up with tides running 2 to 4 feet above normal, even with the storm offshore, and that could cause certainly moderate coastal flooding in many areas, particularly in the most susceptible of areas. So I would, for information regarding that, you probably would do well to just check your local weather source. And by the way, rip currents this weekend up and down the beaches are definitely going to be very problematic. So anyway, we are coming up on 30 minutes, and I'm going to have to end it at this point. I hope you enjoyed this different format than what I've been usually doing. I'm just continue to try to experiment around with presentation, and I'm getting a little bit more dexterous, trying to be less and less sloppy now that I get used to where everything is. Thank you everyone for being here. For those of you who have previously hit the super chat, I really appreciate it, and I thank you very much. Let's have a beer and cigar after a hard day's work, and that's a very nice gesture, and I really appreciate it. And of course, if you feel so inclined, I do have a PayPal, a tip jar PayPal account, and you can access that along with my latest posts on all of this at meteorologistjoecioffi.com. and my partner Angry Ben is doing New York City weather and his analysis of that at nycweathernow.com. We'll attempt a live stream tonight at midnight if I'm not too tired. I'll schedule it a little later on when I see how I feel, and update you on the evening, the new model runs that'll be coming out. The GFS starts at 11:30 Eastern Time, and the NAM starts at 10 p.m., a little bit before 10 p.m. Eastern Time, so we'll have that to look forward to as well. Thank you so much for hitting the super chat PRJ Grudge. Thank you. Really appreciate it on a Friday night. I love that you guys are on here, by the way, and I'm really enjoying the interaction, and hopefully the audience grows, continues to grow as well as it has, and we can continue to expand on this. I know this is a Friday night. Friday nights are usually nights where people are not necessarily on Facebook or on YouTube. Right now they're at happy hour after a long week of work. And thank you again, PRJ Grudge. It's going to get me a cigar for the drive home. All right, have a great evening, folks. We will see you possibly at midnight tonight. And, of course, I'll be on during tomorrow and Sunday. I'll be live streaming, at different times because I will be home. So I will set a schedule up and put it up for you so you can keep up with what I'm doing, and make sure you catch those live streams during Saturday and Sunday as we figure out what Jose is going to do, and perhaps by tomorrow we'll have Lee and Maria. Have a great Friday evening. We'll talk to you later.